introduce to you Stephan Sieber and welcome him on the stage. Right. There you go.
Thank you. Wow, what an introduction. Our leader, our inspirator. That's, I guess, the first time that somebody introduces me like this. No pressure, absolutely no pressure. Well, good morning. I'd like to, usually people say you should never start a presentation with an apology, so I don't do it. But I think it's always good to start a presentation with a big thank you. Well, thank you to you as our customers for giving us the trust and for giving us the business and for taking the decision to spend the day with us here. Thank you to all the partners who are in the room. We had already a day yesterday with our partners in the Asia-Pacific region, talking about the opportunities, talking about what's going on in the market, jointly looking for ways how we can serve you, our customers, in a better way. A thank you to all the colleagues of Unit4, particularly the event team that made this conference happen. I hope you will enjoy the day as much as I will enjoy it. I know a little bit about the program, and I know for a fact that it will be an exciting day. So thank you for being here, and welcome. This is the fourth event in a series of customer conferences that we do. We had the first one in April in Amsterdam, which is our home country, the Netherlands. Then we had a customer conference in the UK, which is an important market for us, in Manchester. We had one in New Orleans, North America, United States, which is a growing market for us, which is right now our fastest growing region. And now we have this customer conference here in Asia Pacific. We have more than 300 customers being with us today. So that's an exciting number. And we clearly take this as a confirmation that we're on a good track, but also as a confirmation of your expectation that you want us to keep on innovating and investing in our technologies in order to help you to improve your business. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to share a quick update with you on what Unit4 is doing, where we're heading, and actually also why we're doing this. And I would be more than happy and look forward to have many interactions with you throughout the day. So when we think about why is a company like Unit4 existing and why does the world need technology firms at all, it probably makes sense to quickly step back and say what's going on, what are the realities we are facing, and what is changing in those realities, and how can we probably use these changing realities as opportunities for us and rather than see them as a risk and being threatened by them. And there are major changes going on in the world, in the way the world functions, pretty much. And I've summarized it on this slide in four major changes. Number one, the way that economies work, the way that markets work, and the impact it has on microeconomical environments, how companies perform and deliver. How the demographics, the social demographics, impact the workforce, the people that produce all the goods and all the stuff, and the resulting social changes. And to keep this relatively short, fundamental principles that I think we all believed in over the last 10, 20 years have turned out to be either not working anymore, or probably they have never worked. And when I talk about fundamental principles, I'm mainly talking about macroeconomical dependencies and equations like, interest rate and stock of money, supply of money. I was always taught at school that when interest rates are low, i.e. money is cheap, and there is a lot of money around, then two things happen. Number one, inflation goes up because the real economy doesn't grow as fast as sort of the money economy, i.e. the value of money depreciates. And number two, the economy grows because people take the money and invest it and spend it. Over the last 10 years, we have seen interest rates that are on an all-time low. There are sometimes even negative in some economies. And we have seen at the same time the stock of money being quadrupled. The UK, the Japanese, and the North American, the US National Bank have actually quadrupled the amount of money in the economy over the last 8 years since the collapse of Lehman Brothers. And still, two things that we all expected to happen are not happening. Inflation doesn't go up, at least not significantly. That's the positive message. The negative message is the economy doesn't grow, or actually growth has significantly slowed down, predominantly driven by the fact that commodities have lost large parts of their values, and oil and copper and zinc, etc., are not trading at the values anymore as they did over the last, few years. That again is driven by the fact that large emerging economies have stopped or have reduced massively their consumption of commodities, which in itself is not a negative thing, but if the economical growth is depending on that, it has an impact. Now, looking at the workforce, looking at the world's population in essence, and particularly at the ages between 25 and 65, which I consider as a simplification as the working ages, there are also massive shifts going on. That little chart on the right side, the blue lines are the demographic distribution of the developed nations, and the green lines is the demographic distribution of emerging nations. The thick line is how it looked like in 1990, and the thin line is how it will look like in 2064. And there's not too much of a crystal ball in this, because large parts of the world's population of 2064 are born today already. So there is a quite high predictability on how this distribution will look like. And we see a number of things. First of all, the pyramids that we have, pyramids meaning a lot of young people, and then as people get older and life comes to an end, we have less and less old people, those pyramids are actually changing almost into cylinders, driven by two things: less children are born and life expectancy is going up, okay? As a consequence, developed nations will see a labor deficit in the next coming years, meaning less and less people enter the workforce, and the deficit of less young people entering the workforce does not get compensated by the surplus of more older people staying longer around because life expectancy goes up. That little surface here, that little gray, here it is, that little gray thing here is actually the labor deficit from less young people entering the workforce, and that little square here is the labor surplus of more older people staying in the workforce, and you can see that the gray part is bigger than the small white part here. The second thing we see is that the demographic distribution of developed nations, of emerging nations, pardon, the green lines, starts with an even more obvious pyramid, but within 70 years, within one generation, the line almost looks as the demographic distribution of the developed nations. Now, in emerging nations, we see that the labor surplus of older people staying longer around and with this in the workforce is bigger than the deficit of less young people coming in. But it raises another question. What is the capability of these people to participate in an ever-changing, rapidly changing economy with high technology advances, etc., etc.? So there is a capacity issue and a capability issue in the workforce, and there are fundamental changes going on in the way how markets function or not function, and how companies and economies react on this. And as a consequence, we see massive social changes. I'm living in the Netherlands, in Europe, and when I open the newspaper, every morning I see that thousands of people have tried to cross the Mediterranean in rubber boats and whatever, because they want to come to Europe and get their fair share of wealth and stability, because in their countries, in their home countries, we're not able to provide that stability and that wealth. And if, at the end of the day, it will lead to a more equal distribution of wealth and stability in the world, which is a good thing. I think the question we have to answer is, how disruptive do we want this process to be, or do we want this process to happen in a civilized and controlled way? Now, a civilized, controlled way means we need to generate economical growth. And if we look at the consequences of that workforce change, we can see that the contribution to economical growth of employment, meaning more people entering the workforce, more people having a job, earning money and spending it, that this contribution will ultimately come to an end. It will actually even be negative at some point in time before 2060, whatever, because the workforce will shrink. It will be smaller, okay? And over the past, 40 years, starting at 1970 here, 1969, we can see that the contribution of more people coming in the workforce, meaning a capacity increase in the workforce, and the contribution of a capability increase in the workforce, meaning the same amount of people producing more through efficiency and productivity gains, was almost 50-50. There are some crises here, the oil crisis, the impact of I still don't know the name, the pill against babies, you know what I mean, yeah? For preventing getting pregnant, right? You see these impacts here of radical changes, but overall in a neutralized, normalized way, you see employment capacity increase of the workforce and productivity gains were pretty much 50-50. And we kept the economy at the growth of, I don't know, probably 3.5% in an average. Now this will dramatically change going forward as this blue bar stops contributing to economical growth and all what's left is the productivity gains. Now productivity gains are achieved through technology. Productivity gains in the past here have predominantly been achieved by automation, the internet, IT, all these things. And productivity gains here in the future are things like autonomous driving, 3D printing that makes production almost obsolete and puts the whole focus and value on design, but also the way how we deal with big data, how we make use of all the IT investments that we have done in the past. So that already factors in productivity gains here, and we could argue if these upcoming changes are more revolutionary than the changes in the past, and I'm happy to have that discussion. I actually think there are some radical things going on that will help us tremendously to improve efficiencies, but it will not help us to triple this number. It will probably give 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 percentages on top. So at the end of the day, if we really want to face that new reality of our economy in the future, we need to compensate for the deficit of capacity increases in the workforce. And the only way to compensate for that is to help people to become more productive. We're moving into an everything as a service economy, and for us as a vendor, as a software and technology vendor, this is very prominent. 5 years ago, our main business model was selling code and selling hours of consulting. And to some extent, that is still parts of our business model, but over the last 5 years, a new business model has evolved. Call it cloud, call it software as a service, where actually you as customers do not expect us to ship code anymore, but you actually expect us to deliver a ready-to-use solution. That has impacts on monetization, that has impacts on value expectations at customers, and what is happening for us is happening in pretty much every industry and in every company. Companies like Toyota invest in Uber, not because they think Uber is a great idea, but probably because they realize that their business is no longer producing cars, but bringing people from A to B. The good thing about services is you need human beings to deliver those services. You probably don't need the same type of human beings anymore, but you need new job profiles that can help to create these services and that can actually help to generate the productivity gains we're looking for. And there are different areas that make people more productive. Well, first of all, the way how we deal with the workforce, how we boost workforce participation, how we keep the economy open for the population of the future. A population that, in average, gets older. At the same time, with massive technology advances, it's difficult for people to keep up. So we need to find new ways how we make technology available for people. I just turned 41, but honestly, I have to say there are some things where even I am overwhelmed with technology. And when I look at my kids, 6 and 8 years, and how they deal with technology, well, I'm sometimes impressed how easy it is for them and how more and more difficult it gets for me. In a workforce that is getting older and older, and at the same time technology advances are accelerating more and more, we need to find new ways how we make technology available for people in the way that they really want to work. The way we deal with infrastructure and how we optimize estates. I always thought I lived in the worst country of the world when it comes to traffic jam. I'm Swiss, and I lived in Switzerland for quite a number of years, but then I moved to the Netherlands and I realized that's even worse. So what's the economical damage of, I don't know, every Dutch person in average spending 7 minutes per day in a traffic jam? And how do we face the facts that land is a limited good? I don't think I need to tell this to people that live in Singapore. How we deal with infrastructure, how we deal with estates, education. And by the way, talent management, talent development is nothing else than education after we've left the learning ages. By the way, that concept that the ages of 0 to 25 are the learning years and the years 25 to 65 are the working years and above 65 are the waiting years, I think that needs revision. In a world that moves as fast as it does, that changes constantly, where physical assets lose their importance and IP and intellectual property and creativity of human beings gets more and more important, we need to find ways how we keep a constant learning process. So education, talent development, how we find efficiency in labor-intensive industries. In an everything-as-a-service economy, it's difficult to find the same efficiencies like in a manufacturing economy because automation is limited. So those are the trends that we are looking at and that we are trying to incorporate in the way we develop our products to help you as our customers to stay as successful as you are and probably even become more successful in an ever-changing economy that moves towards services. And my colleagues and our partners today on stage, in the breakouts, in the exhibition hall outside are sharing with you how we apply technology to drive people productivity. This is why we are in business for people. And this tagline has two parts. Number one, in business, and number two, in people. So let me talk a little bit what it means to be in business for us. As a technology vendor, and I always simplify this, I say there are two types of softwares. There is the software that companies need. This is what keeps the business alive, up and running. That's the backbone. That's probably the transactional system that you need to manage your payroll, that you need to manage your accounts receivable, accounts payable, your cash flow. But it's probably also the software that nobody excites. I had a conversation with IDC gentleman here, and I said, well, probably it excites people, but only if it doesn't work. If it works, nobody gets excited about that type of software because it's a non-differentiating type of software. Everybody expects that it just runs. This is the achievement of the last 40 years of commercial IT. You know, we know how to run these ERP systems at the back. The software that excites companies is the software in the periphery. That's usually the software that companies want. It is the software that helps customers, helps companies, organizations to better manage their relationships to their customers, to their stakeholders, a university, student management, faculty management, a not-for-profit organization, volunteer management, donor management, grants management, a public sector body organization, the relationship to citizens, a professional service organization, the relationship to customers and consultants, and so on and so forth. And it is the software that helps you as our customers to better manage your resources. In a people-centric industry, in a people-centric economy, there are two major resources that we need to manage: money and talent. So how do we invest our funds? How do we free cash flows, and where do we invest them to foster future growth and success? And what is the talent that is needed for this? The existing and the future talent, and how is our workforce changing over time in order for us to keep up and use the opportunities that are out there? And this is the software that excites you and us. This is the software where we as a technology vendor can focus on helping you to be more successful. In an everything as a service economy, customers will stop paying for input and effort, and they will only pay for results and values. So in essence, your success is our success, and we need to do everything possible to support you in your success in order for us to remain successful. This is what we are trying to achieve as Unit4, and there are a few exciting news that we will share with you throughout the day. Let me start at the bottom. My colleague Tom Dobbe will talk about the people platform, which is the underlying foundation for the technology we develop. In an age of postmodern ERP, where we will move more and more into system landscapes of best-of-breed components that are loosely coupled, that communicate with each other without being in one monolithic system, you need a solid foundation. Our solid foundation for this is the people platform. It allows us to connect applications and build meaningful business scenarios that generate a value for you. And it allows us to develop what we call self-driving business applications that help human beings to make use of technology and actually make digital a productivity driver rather than a productivity killer. And then we have this layer of business capabilities. This is where the functionality sits. This is where you can manage a payroll, where you can do a forecast, where you can pay salaries, where you can register a student or register a course. And there are some exciting news that we would like to share with you today. First of all, definitely our new student management system that we have offering higher education institutes around the globe a completely new experience in managing their students and faculty relationships. Definitely some news also on ProSoft, our local HR offering here with localized payroll, transactional HR offering that we have heavily invested in mobile apps, for example. And then Business World On, which is the largest release ever developed and ever delivered to our customers for Unit4 Business World. And last but not least, a completely new offering in the office of the CFO space. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. However, these business capabilities are not sufficient anymore because you expect us to deliver results and you expect us to deliver value. And this is why we have worked on a concept called the value accelerators, which are pre-configured, predefined scenarios combining different business capabilities into process flows that generate a business result for you. And we have value accelerators in the meantime for pretty much all the strategic verticals that we are serving: professional services, education, not-for-profit, and public services. The value accelerators are the glue that go between the business capabilities and make sure that we deliver scenarios to you that are relevant and that help you to manage your business in a more successful way. The offering in the office of the CFO space that I mentioned is Prevero, a company that we have acquired, and we announced this acquisition at the beginning of this week to the public world. Prevero is a leading player in the corporate performance management and business analytics space. With Prevero, we have probably the strongest 360-degree decision-making platform in the industry. It is a beautiful extension of our offering in the software that companies need, and it is clearly a strong move into the software that companies want, because this decision-making platform can help you, your decision makers in your organizations, pretty much across all the business areas, to take faster, more precise decisions by using forecasting, planning, and analysis tools, by having strong cash and consolidation management, and by having a very comprehensive business analytics BI offering. Prevero is a German company that is in business for more than 20 years, 160 colleagues joining Unit4, strengthening our team here, and I'm very excited about the fact that also in Asia, Prevero has a presence, and we have managed, despite the short notice we had, to make sure that the whole team is here today with us There is a little booth outside the stand where you can get in contact with these colleagues and where you can inform yourself about the powerful option this offers to all of us. Let me talk about the second part of the tagline, in business for people. For people, and I said it before, for many of us, digital or technology in many ways is more a productivity killer than it is a productivity driver. We get slammed and overwhelmed by data, unstructured data, by multiple different sources of data, and in many cases, workflows that are not properly configured actually slow processes down rather than accelerate them. So we have to find new ways how we make technology available for people, and this is our concept of self-driving business applications. What is true for economies and for companies is also true for individuals. It is a capacity increase that is needed, a capacity increase in the time that each and every one of us can invest in high added value tasks. And that time can only be increased by reducing the amount of time we spend in low added value tasks. Everything that can be automated needs to be automated. Everything that is repetitive is probably something we can take away from human beings. And it is a capability increase by supporting people with technology to take smarter decisions, to make better use of the knowledge, the data, the information that is around them. Combining these two concepts in a way that we design, in the way we design user interfaces, in the way that people work and people want to work, in the way that we use data and predictive analytics to make sure that we anticipate future behavior rather than report back post-mortem on stuff that has happened in the past. And in the way we help applications to constantly learn and improve their behavior based on behaviors of the past, this is what we call self-driving business applications. And Tom will share some scenarios with you. Some of them are very simple, and some of them are highly complex, but following these three principles gives us an opportunity to, for example, dramatically improve the student experience for students when they deal with their university. For example, automatic course enrollment, depending on the degree you are trying to achieve. The system making proactive suggestions to you based on your credit points, based on your learning path so far, which courses you should attend in order to get your degrees as fast as possible and as secure as possible. Live donation results for not-for-profit organizations that help create the transparency to donors that donors expect from a not-for-profit organization when they give their money. But also in professional service organizations, project simulations. Our customers run large projects. They run multiple projects at the same time, and they have a history of hundreds or sometimes even thousands of projects. In every project, there are comparable elements, even though a project per definition is a unique case. Combining this data and supporting project managers, for example, in planning and risk managing their project and saying, well, in the last 15 projects we did in that similar space, every time we entered this phase, we saw issues. Why don't you plan accordingly and increase capacity? This is what we call self-driving business applications, and this is how we are convinced that we can help people to increase their productivity. This is why we are in business for people. But if you drill down, we're not in business for people, we're in not-for-profit for donors, we're in higher education for students, we're in HR for employees, we're in professional services for consultants, because at the end of the day, the customer, or probably even the consumer of technology, even more the consumer of technology, is the ultimate measure of success in an everything as a service economy. In business for people, for me, is the best tagline that the company has ever had, because it describes who we are, it describes what we do, and it describes why we exist. We're here to demonstrate to you that this tagline is not an empty promise. We're here for you. Thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.